Hey, all. Just wanted to come to you at the close of this week and share maybe some helpful insights as I start to create my prototype. Now, you're focusing on wrapping up your wireframes, but in the meantime, as maybe you're waiting for feedback or have some downtime over the weekend, it's never too late to actually start to think about your prototype. And especially with Adobe XD being a new tool, the most time that we can spend ahead of time in our prototype and in talking about prototypes, I think the better. So I just wanted to maybe share a few helpful things as I get started inside of Adobe XD and creating my prototypes as we move into next week. So here I've got my wireframes that we just walked through that we're working on right now, created here. And to get started with my prototype, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a new, look for a new interface. Now, our requirements are going to be that we're using this web 1366. So 1366 pixels wide, and the breakpoint's going to be at 768 pixels tall. So the great thing is it's pre-generated inside of Adobe XD. So I'm just going to actually create a new file at this web 1366. Now that dimension is actually was the second most popular, I believe, dimension in 2020 as far as usage goes. And so pretty popular laptop resolution screen size. You can imagine this is pretty much probably what your laptop might look like or desktop. And so as we get started, I'm going to pull some things into this file from perhaps the previous file that I've been working from for either my wireframe or my mood board. And so just real quickly, just from kind of a housekeeping perspective, I'm probably going to rename this just to be, we're just going to make this homepage and desktop, just so I know that this is my desktop screen. And so the assets that I want to bring over from my previous screen is I've got two versions of my logo that I've created. And actually, let me just bring this up here. So the assets that I want to bring over from my mood board are pretty simple. It would be things that are going to help me get started in my design of my prototype. So I want to bring over my colors. I want to bring over any logos that I've created. I want to bring over my fonts as well, so I have an understanding of what that looks like. And just to get started, I think that's all I need right now for my prototype for my mood board. So I'm just going to bring those over here. Oh, and it looks like it only brought over the one. Let me copy that, and then I'll bring it over. I'll bring everything over here. There we go. So I'm just gonna again bring those off to the side. Your perimeter is probably going to be pretty busy. And we're only worried then about what happens over here. So this just maybe it's helpful to see how I kind of set up some things on the side here. One of the things I'm also going to bring in is I'm going to bring in my wireframe of my homepage. That's helpful because I can reference it as I begin to build my prototype. And I'm going to bring that over to the side. Now you might want to like resize this to the actual kind of width of your window here, of your artboard. Just so you get an understanding kind of spatially and from a size perspective, what might be important to look at. So this actually creates a really big screen, but it might be good just for you to see maybe a 1-for-1 of what that's going to look like. So have that off to the side. Also in the background here, I've got Handle's existing website. So just helpful for me to go and reference, pull any assets I might need and have that there. So here I've got, my outside perimeter canvas that has some assets here. I've got my wireframe here as well. And what I'm going to do is maybe start to set up some things foundationally that are going to be really helpful to keep consistency as I begin to create my prototype. So some things that are helpful. So I'm just going to click on my primary, secondary colors, accent 1, accent 2, accent 3. And I'm going to actually create repeatable patterns or components out of these. So over on the left-hand panel here, you see colors, character styles, and components. And so colors are just, you can create palettes of colors that you can easily drag and drop and pick as you begin to create your prototype. So I'm actually going to click on this. I'm going to add this as the primary. I'm going to click on secondary, hit the plus sign, add that button. Accent color, I want to keep that as well. I'm going to bring over accent 2. And I'm going to bring over accent 3. Now that I've done that, I can just delete these. I don't need them anymore because they're all right here in my panel. Now let me show you how this actually works. So let's say that I'm drawing maybe navigation here, right? We're just going to quickly maybe rough in what the nav might look like. If I go over to my actual wireframe, it looks a little bit taller than that. That's okay. It doesn't have to be an exact one-for-one of your drawing. It probably never is that, you know, it's a quick rough drawing. So maybe just find this height here at 100 for my navigation. And because I have these colors in here, I can actually just click on it and it's going to swap my colors out for me really quickly. So I don't have to worry about, you know, maybe coming over here to the fill value and changing the hex color, or actually going over and selecting the colors or anything like that. I can actually do it all right here from my colors in my document assets panel. So really cool too. Also, if you wanted to create a color that was just, you know, you wanted to have also including maybe whatever your dark black text color might be, maybe I want to use that as my text color. I want to add that as well. And maybe I also want to create a white color as well to have up there too. So now I've got all my colors, all my panels up here, and just really I have a lot of ease of use, ease of access to all the colors in my color palette here on the left hand side. So that's super cool. One other thing I want to do real quick is to set up my styles for my fonts. And so I can click on my headline here. I can see it's 72 bold. This will probably be the biggest font that I have on my site. And so I'm just going to click over to character style. So character meaning the text, the actual characters themselves. And so I'm going to click on the text colors. I'm actually going to make sure I have the right colors here. And I'm going to select this my dark navy as an option. And I'm going to create the character style as well. Same, really easy. Font says bold at 72. Now I've also included in this module some information about the type structure and the type hierarchy. I'll get into that in the next video in next week's module, and maybe go a little bit more in depth in creating that. But right now, just know that you can really easily and quickly create character styles here on the left hand side. I also have here my body copy, and so 24 pixels is pretty big for a body copy. So I'm actually going to reduce this down to 16. Which looks really small here, but on paper in the actual interface is going to look really kind of consistent and great. You could bump it to 18, but typically body copy ranges between 14, 16, 18 pixels, somewhere around there. And I'm actually going to create my line height. This kind of center number here is line spacing. And I'm probably going to create that. And usually I like to keep it at an 8-point difference from where it's at. So 16 plus 8 is 24, and that's going to be my line height. Usually I'm plus 8 from wherever my actual font size is there. So I feel really good about that. I'm going to add that character style as well. So now all of a sudden, if I go and I want to type in, if I want to type some text, and I'm just going to quickly, you know, type out some text here, I can actually very quickly just go over here and select font says bold, and it just swaps it out to it. And if I wanted to change the color, I can just swap and change the color. So you can see that setting up some of those things early on in your design as you get started, carrying over the information from your mood board, carrying over some of the things you've already established for your colors, your fonts, your typography, is going to be really helpful to get you started. So I'm just going to quickly create my navigation here while I've got you here. So I'm going to delete that. I know my logo is going to be my nav. And actually, if I wanted to create the logo as a component, I can do that as well. So I'm going to change the height to be maybe something a little bit more reasonable to the canvas itself. Maybe 250 pixels tall might be reasonable. But I can actually create this as a component so that I don't have to worry about copy and pasting any components. I can actually drag and drop the Handles logo in there no matter what page I'm on. So anything you create that's going to be reusable throughout your design, go ahead and create it as a component, or create a character style, or create a color palette. It's going to be really helpful and expedite your process as you go through. So let me go ahead and just start to create my navigation for here, and you'll see maybe how I get started here at the very top. So I've got the white background for the navigation. I might keep that. What I'm going to do is just recreate so I can kind of see where that contrast is, and create my backdrop here. So I'm not going to actually have this as like the image background, but just to kind of know where the navigation comes into play, I just want to see kind of where that break is. One other thing that's really helpful inside of Adobe XD is that if I go and I select Command Shift and the apostrophe, I'm going to be able to see columns. And so this grid structure is really important as you think about how your content's going to lay out on the page. And like I said, we're gonna go in more depth next week into this, but just know you can quickly toggle on and off the column structure by doing Shift Command and the apostrophe on your keyboard. And so just real quickly, I'm gonna drop in the handles logo. That's a little too big maybe for my taste, my liking here in the navigation. I might just resize that. And the cool thing about creating it as a component is it's actually not going to resize my existing component. My component is still, if I dropped another one in, you can still see it's the bigger size. So I can resize this component however I need to, however I feel like it's going to make the most sense to fit within my prototype. So I've got my logo there. That kind of feels nice. It's about 24, or we'll just go 24 pixels from the top. It's kind of resting really nicely, kind of nested in there. I'm going to begin to build my navigation a little bit here as well. So I'm thinking maybe the navigation might be our menu. Maybe let's see, another navigation item might be our history. Maybe another one is locations. And maybe another one is fundraisers. Now, I'm not sure what this nav is going to look like, but just to get it started, I have these options here. I'm actually going to go ahead and select it. I can change it if I wanted to. That kind of looks a little wonky, but I have it about the size of my font here over here, my Poppins 16 medium that I've already selected. So that kind of sits very nicely there at the top. Now, you kind of want to make sure these are spaced evenly. So I'm actually going to select all 4 of these. And some cool things that XD has over here in the panel, I can actually create and shape things really easily here on the left hand side and space them really nicely too. So here at the very top, I can make sure they're all centered, and they have this icon here to distribute horizontally. And so if I click that, you can see it moved a little bit. So let me do that again real quick, and I'm going to zoom in here so you can see that if I click on this, it's actually going to make sure my spacing between all these is even, which is just a really nice, helpful tool as you get started to see that there. So that feels really good. Those 4 options is my navigation. It fits nicely and centered within my nav. I'm also going to add a couple social media icons up here. Now, I think I mentioned in one of the earlier videos that I have a few plugins inside of Adobe XD. And so if you're with me here down at the bottom left corner, there's a couple different pages. You've got your component library, your library here. You've got your layers, so I can actually go into this and see my layers and things like that. And then I have plugins. Inside of plugins, I usually have 4 that I adjust. I've got icons for design. I've got Stark, which is an accessibility plugin, and I've got UI faces. So I'm actually going to use this icons for design, and I'm going to add some social media icons. So I know Handles has an Instagram, so I'm just going to type in Instagram. You can see it kind of starts to populate, and I'm going to add that here. So click on that. It usually pastes it in the top left corner of your screen, but here you can see another helpful thing here too is these smart spacing. And so XD knows that all of these navigation items are 39 pixels apart. I might, for just kind of my own OCD, make those 40 just to make sure that they are all 40 apart. And that makes me feel really good to know that they're all 40. And now you can see it's going to, kind of snap there to 40 pixels, which is just a really nice little function of Adobe XD. Because I'm using this plugin here, I'm actually going to add Facebook as well. They have a nice little Facebook page. So I'm going to use the Facebook circle just to make sure that it's compatible with kind of similar to that the Instagram. And if I move it over, it's going to stop me at 40 pixels there. So now I've got a really nice navigation, and I'm going to just bring it over and make sure we're about 40 pixels or so from this sidebar here on the right hand side. And I can actually, because these are vector based, they're already they're drawn shapes. I can go back to my my assets or my document assets panel, and I can make these whatever color I wanted to. So I'm going to make the Facebook blue, and I'm going to make the Adobe XD, or sorry, the Instagram icon. I'm going to make the Instagram icon blue there if I can. Not quite sure why that's doing that. Maybe I'll revisit it there, but we'll leave it as is with the dark color so far. One thing I might also want to do in my navigation is I might be interested in doing a dual drop shadow, just to make that kind of hover and stand out too. So I'm going to make this, just kind of feel it to see maybe how, how much of a blur, how stark, how deep I want that shadow to be. And so I think 6 for this is a kind of a nice soft shadow, 6 pixels below it coming down in the navigation, and then 12 pixel blur for how blurred or how diluted that shadow is. So maybe I just thought it'd be helpful to do a quick little video here as I get started inside of my prototype and setting some things up. Definitely dive into the documentation and the document assets panel here. Bring in your colors from your mood board, bring in your type. And again, we're going to go more in depth into this next week, but just thought it'd be helpful as we have this intro to prototyping, intro to creating your prototype module here, just to kind of fill you in on some neat things that Adobe XD offers as we get started in prototyping, and just kind of walk you through quickly how I would go about creating my navigation. So hopefully this has been helpful. We'll go way more in depth in the prototyping section next week. But I've also included the part 2 of the Adobe Instructors XD walkthrough. So definitely watch that if you want to brush up on your Adobe XD. Also included some helpful video from Rand Siegel as well. And then some great blogs about introducing you to typography hierarchy inside of Adobe XD and inside of web design. So thank you guys for watching. Hopefully this was helpful, and I'll see y'all next week as we dive into prototyping a little bit more.